Hey everyone, welcome to Proudly Jewish, Conversations on Israel and Jewish Identity. It's been a while where I thought about having an episode that deals with the music that's coming out of Israel as a response to October 7th. And I've been hearing some wonderful things in all kinds of levels. And instead of my delving into it, I wanted to find someone who knew it better than I did, who could comment on it better than I did. I did a bit of research and stumbled upon someone who is not someone that you should stumble upon, someone that we should all know. He hosts the Israel Hour Radio. It's been on for 25 years or just about.
More than that, actually, but
More
yes.
than that?
Yes.
More than that. Josh Shron, welcome to Proudly Jewish. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Eyal. It is wonderful to join you.
I appreciate this. And, you know, I when I was doing my research and thinking about this particular topic, the response to October 7th musically coming out of Israel, I saw that you were you've already addressed this. You've created a playlist that deals with this. You wrote, there's an article that touches upon specifically this. Can you address to our audience here how Israeli musical artists have given voice to the sentiment in Israel following October 7th?
Well, sure. First of all, you couldn't have asked me at a better time because I'm currently we made Aliyah 5 months ago
Oh,
from New Jersey, and I'm currently back in the States, touring all over the place, speaking about Israel and Israeli music's response to October 7th. So this is very much on my mind these days, and really has been ever since that fateful day, because the artists have just been incredible in helping us understand the vibe of Israel during this difficult time. For one thing, the artists have been all over the country trying to make people happy, going to army bases and having these joyous concerts for the soldiers, and going to hotels where people have been displaced and helping them find a little joy during this difficult time, and just have been doing everything they can to help the country cope with this tragedy. But as for the songs themselves, well, they've also, so often people say, "I have no words." They hear a tragedy, there are no words. Well, many of these artists have found the words, and I find that whenever I play some of this music on my podcast, people say, there was one particular song or two songs on the list that really just put into words exactly what I'm feeling. And they're helping us connect to this tragedy, no matter where in the world you are. And I can get into specific examples if you'd like.
I would. I think it'd be an amazing opportunity to share some clips with my audience. If you point us in the right direction, telling us, this song does this or this song does that, I think that I would love to be exposed to these songs, and I think that my audience would as well. In terms of giving comfort to people, these artists going around to, as you said, going to the people wherever they may be and reaching out. If I am imagine that, if I think about it and I don't see it for myself, I'm assuming that these are going to be songs of solace, of comfort, perhaps songs of that you not quite you might hear it at Iskor or Shiva, but something that's mournful. Is that right, or is there are there other dimensions?
Well,
Yeah.
there are lots of dimensions actually, and every week on my show, I tell my listeners, I'm going to pull your heart in a gazillion different directions, because that's what this music is doing.
Right.
But more than anything, I've divided, and in my presentation that I've been giving, I've divided the songs into three categories, and that is first the songs of pain and loss and sadness and tragedy and just difficulty.
Right.
They're all very painful to listen to. The next category is songs reminding us of the plight of the hostages.
Yeah.
And the third one, on a totally different level, complete 180, songs of unity and strength and optimism and hope and understanding that, yes, we will get through this, and yes, we will rebuild, and yes, we'll be stronger than before.
To start at the end for a moment, the unity. It seemed to me that there was what you just spoke about, the comforting. There's an outpouring of wanting to hold each other as a community, as one large, small community, right? Israel's so small. I think everybody knows somebody that was um, I was going to say impacted in just to use a soft euphemism in some way by the war or October 7th itself. And there's a need to hug each other and hold each other. So I get the unity. And one question I had before I ask for you to get into these, because I'd love to hear more, is was there an outpouring of creativity as well from the point of view of these artists in terms of, there's this desire to, in other words, before October 7th, people were making music and they're making music now. Have the themes changed or is it also that the amount of creative output has increased?
The amount I'm not sure about. I mean, these artists have always been pretty busy. Israel's biggest musical stars are always releasing things. But I think after October 7th, everyone felt they needed to put their own personal take on what had happened.
Right.
So for some artists, that was let me share the pain that I've been feeling, or let me just use this song as an outlet to cry and to share the grief. Others have been saying, I feel inspired to bring the country together and to say, Yachad Ninatzeach, together we will win. And those kinds of songs. So everyone wanted to say, everyone wanted to try to bottle up the mood of the country in their own unique way. And it's been so interesting to see how they've all dealt with it.
What's on my mind is, what was the first reaction musically? Was it loss? Was it, you said loss and pain? Was that the first, the first songs that came out at the beginning? Was it that? I'm thinking in particular of this song. I'm over here in Portland, Oregon, in the States, and I'm listening to Israeli music as best as I can, but I'm not there. And the song that hit me over here was Harbu Darbu at the beginning, and I don't know where that where that came. So can you tell us more? What was coming out at the beginning? Was it loss and pain, or was it the sentiment that we get in that song?
Well, I can tell you the first two songs that I remember hearing, and they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. One was Moledet by Hanan Ben Ari, and that was a song, I think, of loss and pain with a touch of we will rebuild. This is a country worth fighting for, and we will rebuild. And if anyone's interested, on our YouTube channel, we have a translated version of that particular song with English subtitles.
I'm going to share a clip. I think we'll do that right here, and let let people listen for themselves. So we've just heard part of Moledet by Hanan Ben Ari. I encourage everyone to listen to the full song. Now, there's one lyric that I saw, that I heard, it jumped out at me when I listened to it. It talks about hope. It talks about, I sing to you an ancient song and what have you. But there's a song, there's a line that's Hamatok v'hamar, the bitter, the sweet and the bitter. And I'm assuming that's an intentional echo of another song that is part of the pantheon, the tapestry of Israeli and Jewish music, Al Kol Ele, right? Alamar v'hamatok. Am I reading that right?
I would say so. I mean, two people can look at the same song lyrics and get something very different, but that would be my guess. And that is so much of the Israeli experience, this combination of bitter and sweet, this combination of, yes, we deal with a lot of tragedy and a lot of difficulty, but we always believe that in the hatikva, the hope that is coming for better days. Yeah, and that's been a good, if you want to sum up the kind of music that's come out, that's it. Mar and matok,
Wow.
Bitter and sweet, all at the same time.
And you spoke of two songs. We talked about Moledet, Hanan Ben Ari, and on another spectrum, there was another song.
Right. So Hanan Ben Ari's Moledet was probably the first song that I heard. And I think the very next day, another song that you brought up earlier when we were talking offline is Yisrael Chai by Eyal Golan. And I've talked with my listeners sometimes online, and I ask, what do you think is going to be the song that people remember, or songs that people will remember 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now as people remember this time in history? And everyone seems to agree that that song, Yisrael Chai by Eyal Golan, has this kind of staying power that people will remember for a long time.
Why is that? What's happening in the song?
It's just so patriotic and so optimistic, and it touches on religion. Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shomer Aleinu, God watches over us, appealing to one aspect, one demographic of the population, and the various Israeli patriotism appealing to another demographic. It just has something for everyone. It's fun to listen to. It's good to dance to. It just makes you feel good inside every time I hear it. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות גם בשעות הכי קשות. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה אמונה. You mentioned that there's something for everyone in that song, and that there's also there's a religious component that taps to another demographic. Now, it tapped to I get that it'll tap to the demographic that is already dati, that is really religious or more spiritual, what have you. It seems to me that in times of distress, in times of war, in times of personal loss, that doesn't involve even not at the level of October 7th, but just individual loss in families, people often turn to religion or spirituality for comfort. Are you seeing that as well? I love that question. And yes, the answer is yes. But in Israel, the line between religious and secular seems to me, and again, I'm kind of new in the country, so I can't tell you exactly, but it seems to me a lot more blurred than it is outside Israel. Right. You have artists like Yishai Ribo, who is an Orthodox guy, comes out with tzitzits, but he's a very modern-looking singer with a guitar, and he sings very modern-sounding songs that are all about God and all about the Jewish experience and all about tefillot, prayers, and yes, he has a huge fan base among those who are religious and a huge fan base among those who are secular, and that was evidenced in Madison Square Garden. He sold out Madison Square Garden in September. I wasn't there, but my son was, and he said, you saw everybody there. You saw with Haredi people with long payas, long curls, and you saw the most secular people as well. So, and that's an amazing phenomenon with him. In Israel, the Jewish experience is just as cultural as it is religious.
Yeah.
So everyone, you've been hearing a lot of artists sing uh, lines from the Psalms. Shir al Ma'alot, Esa Einai el Harim, I lift my eyes up to the heavens. And these are secular Israeli artists that just know this stuff from their entire upbringing,
Yeah.
and they are quoting these lines that just everybody knows, whether you believe that there's a God listening or not. You know these lines, and they are meaningful to you. And
Oh.
I mean, I could talk for a long time about this amazing, you know, the amazing fusion of religious and secular in Israeli society.
And to continue that, just for a brief moment, I'm a cantor. I'm a cantor in Portland, Oregon, at Neve Shalom, a conservative synagogue. Grew up in the Spanish Portuguese synagogue in Montreal. Synagogue liturgy is my life. My children are my life, but liturgy has been my life for many, many years. And I was listening to this artist, I believe on your playlist, and he has this amazing dance song with Omer Adam about a revolution of joy that came out of not a few years ago, I believe, and now there's this song that's called Acheinu Kol Beit Yisrael. All the whole house of Israel are brothers or our family.
אחינו כל בית ישראל הנתונים בצרה העומדים בין בים באוויר ובין ביבשה הקדוש ברוך הוא ירחם עליהם ויוציאם מצרה.
Lior Narkis is who I'm talking about. Lior Narkis, and he has this song. He has songs that are like dance songs, and he's doing this. That jumped out at me. I don't know if he's not Ishai Ribo. He's not doing.
No, not at all. And that's that. I actually bring that song up in my presentation that I've been giving because I find it amazing to turn on the radio in Israel, mainstream Israeli secular radio in Israel, and hear a song like this. Here is a guy with tattoos all up and down his arms, but he has this Jewish neshama, this Jewish soul that comes out when it needs to. Not all his songs are about prayer or Judaism or lines from the liturgy, but in times like this, it is so relevant and it's something that the entire country can get behind. This feeling that, look, I don't know who's up there listening, whether you believe in God or you don't. We can just pray for better times. We can pray that God will bring salvation or that salvation will come, however it comes. And for a release of the hostages and for better times ahead.
And it seems to me, as you said, that they grew up with this as part of the culture. It underlines the Jewish people. We're a people with a religion. This is our faith. These are our legends. These are our stories of our people. These are the texts of our ancestors. These are our prayers of our people. And that resonates with me greatly. I did a program, by the way, last night at my congregation on the genius of Paul Simon. And several people came up to me afterwards and said, we don't come to services, but we come looking for community occasions. And this brought us together. Okay. But there's this crossover of what religious part of this Jewish identity is. Now, instead of me pontificating, let's go back. And I'd love to explore your categories. And I don't know where you'd like to start, but maybe we can start at the first one that you mentioned, loss and pain, unless you want to move to the other one. I'd love to go through your categories. And if you could point us or illustrate one or two songs that underscore those themes, I think that would be wonderful.
Sure. So starting with that category of loss and pain, one song that I find very difficult and very meaningful is mostly a rap song, and it's amazing how, in the States, I don't think I listen to much rap music. In Israel, it can be extremely meaningful and very relevant, and just really talk to your soul. It's by a pop singer named Odeya and a rapper named Izi. All right. And it's called Choref Esrim V'Shalosh. So first of all, the title itself echoes back to an earlier song in Israel, Choref Shivim V'Shalosh, the winter of 1973. It was written about the children who were born after the Yom Kippur War, and now those children have turned 18, and they are saying, you know, when we were born after the Yom Kippur War, you promised us that we weren't going to have to go to the army. And now here we are. We have to go to the army. What's that all about? You have to keep your promises. So that was the old song from 1991 or 1992. And so when this song came out, Choref Esrim V'Shalosh, the winter of 2023, that obviously made everybody sit up and take notice. But this song is very, very different. This song is a conversation with God. You know, we're talking about this blurred line between religious and secular. A conversation with God. How could you do this? How could you take these people away? What did they do? What was their crime? I want to talk to you, Father. They keep saying to Father, referring to God, about, you know, we call you in our prayers a merciful God. Well, where's your mercy? And is anybody even listening when I pray? And these are the kinds of questions, you know, you talk about a return to spirituality during times like these, and you're right. But on the other hand, for some, you might be pulling away from spirituality a little bit and saying, if there's a God, how can God allow something like this? Yeah. And that's who we are. We're Yisrael. We wrestle with God, and that's okay. And that's what makes us who we are.
אנחנו הילדים של חורף 23, חמלה ששרפו לה את הבית, מוסר שרפו לו את הראש, בצער רב ויגון קודע, פתאום המנהיגים שלי הפסיקו לדבר, חיללו לי את השבת והמשיח מאחר, זוכרת שאמרנו מתי זה ייגמר.
Do we have another one for Loss and Pain, or do we want to go to your other category?
I mean, I can share a whole bunch. You know what? I'll just give you one more that I find pretty meaningful, and it's by a singer by the name of Benaia Barabi. Okay. And he's joined forces with a number of survivors from the Nova Festival. So many of the songs that we hear are all about those who lost their lives and mourning for those people. But what about the survivors? How do they move on? How do they go through life with what they've experienced and this constant reminder of pain? And so he sings along with them a song called Zeh BeSeder, it's okay, but the rest of the line is Zeh BeSeder lo liot beseder. It's okay not to be okay. And really the gist of the song is, no matter how you're going through this process, no matter how you're dealing with it personally, whether you sit in your room all day and cry, or whether you go through life and pretend it never happened, or whatever you do to cope with this grief, it's all okay. It's all acceptable. Nobody's judging you.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I haven't heard the song. Looking forward to hearing it.
זה בסדר לא להיות בסדר, זה בסדר לשיר שכואב, זה בסדר לבכות כל בוקר, ולמרות הכל בסוף לקום, זה בסדר לא להיות נורמלי, זה בסדר לא לומר מילה, זה בסדר לקוד עד הבוקר, בחושך מלא תקווה.
The second category was dealing with the hostages, this terrible tragedy. You know, when Israel has had one person taken hostage, the country goes into crisis and can be years of a certain type of grief. And here you had hundreds, and now we have just over about 130 or so hostages still not returned home. So how has Israel been dealing with that musically?
Shortly after October 7th, Idan Raichel, who is one of Israel's most successful singer-songwriters over the past, I don't know, 25 years or so. He writes songs that he sings, and then he writes a lot of songs that other people sing.
I see.
So he asked Roni Dalumi to join him on a song where she is the vocalist. And the song is called Tachzor, Return. And in it, Roni Dalumi is singing, just return. You don't need to give me prior notice. Just show up. I'm here waiting for you. And you could just imagine the families of the hostages saying, just come. Just show up. I'm ready. Just come. And I don't know, there was something about the combination of the music and the lyrics and the vocals all combined that made it very, very powerful to me. And I've heard it on the radio a lot while driving around Israel, and it always makes me stop and think, because it's so easy for us to get back to our lives and, you know, go through our day, and we need to remind ourselves throughout our day that there are 130 something hostages being held in Hamas captivity.
Right. Idan Raichel, תחזור.
אז קוראת לך מתוך הלילה, תחזור, תחזור היום. כל כך רציתי שתגיע, הלוואי תבוא בלי להודיע עוד היום. אני מגדל של אור.
I'll just tell you one more, and
Sure.
that is the what they called the Homeland concert. This had been spread far and wide on social media, so maybe your listeners may have seen this already. But this was the organizers wanted to do something grand in support of the hostages.
Yeah.
So they invited 1,000 singers and musicians to come to the amphitheater in Caesarea to perform a song.
Yeah,
Called,
I saw this.
okay,
Yeah, please, yes.
called Habaita, Home, which was originally came out in 1983. And at the time, it was recorded as a song urging Israel to pull out of the first Lebanon war and bring their soldiers home. Well, now it's been, the song has been repurposed, and it's a very, very powerful rendition of this song, with 1,000 people standing in the Caesarea amphitheater, this ancient amphitheater, and singing their hearts out with lots of musicians, drummers, saxophonists, guitarists, everything. And it's a really beautiful, stirring performance. And I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, it's called the Homeland concert.
Well, let's watch a clip of that. Let's take a look at that third category, unity, pride. And I think you've already spoken about that at the beginning with Yisrael Chai, with Eyal Golan. And I know there's more, but please tell us.
Yeah, Yisrael Chai is probably, like I said, the biggest song to come out of this war, right, from that category. One of the other huge songs that have come out of this war is by Yagel Oshri. It's called Latzet Midikaon. And you might not recognize the title, but I bet you've heard the song. Why? Because on every video that you've seen of IDF soldiers reuniting with their families, that song is playing in the background. It's an amazing story of a guy who was not a household name in Israel beforehand. He had a little bit of a following on TikTok, and after the radio station in Israel, the major radio station Gal Galatz, rejected this song back in August before the war. He said, all right, I'll release it on TikTok. And it started to gain a little bit of a following and got some people to take notice. Then October 7th happened, and suddenly this song was everywhere. And it's by far one of the biggest songs of the war.
It is utterly beautiful. I love this song. I'm so glad you mentioned it. And Da, 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 da. I have a 4-year-old son, and he sings it, and he asks for it in the car sometimes. He knows it's sad, but he doesn't call it sad. He says the beautiful song. He calls it the
Okay.
beautiful song. Let's listen to Letsat Midikaon, getting out of depression.
גם בשעות החשוכות של הלילה תמיד יהיה כוכב קטן שיעיר לך את עצמך, את הדרך הביתה. תמיד זה הכי חשוך לפני הזריחה. מיליון רכבות דוהרות עד אוסטרליה, מחפש רחוק את מה שנמצא לך מתחת לאף. כל מכשול זה מדליה, קם ונופל אבל בדרך שלך.
It was a song written before the war. It was actually written for a friend of his that was going through a breakup with her boyfriend. And he wanted to show her, everything's going to be okay. Don't be bogged down by sadness. And so he wrote that song for her. And everyone embraced it in a big way.
It's so beautiful and comforting. Yeah. I asked an Israeli colleague of mine, about what song for her captures it for, the music of post-October 7th. She said for her, the song of the war is Latzet Midikaon. That's the one for her. There's one other, I don't know if it's another theme. Perhaps it's under, we're under unity. I don't know if you wanted to add something more. I mentioned Charbut, and I want to talk about that one.
Right.
There's unity there too, but there's another element, it seems to me, that I would think we don't see necessarily in the music that came out of other wars, like this rage.
Yes.
This anger.
And that song is probably in a category all its own, although I kind of lump it in with this category. But essentially, the song, the Harbu means, it comes from Syrian Arabic and means literally swords and strikes. And the Times of Israel writes, in Hebrew slang, it's a reference to raining hell on one's opponent, which is exactly what the rappers promised the IDF will do to Hamas. And you're right, it is an angry song, but it's also an optimistic song, showing that yes, we're ready to do what we need to do to protect our country. There are a number of units of the IDF mentioned, and everybody's ready. Everybody's ready to as we said, rain hell on Hamas. And when I played it, first of all, this song was #1 in Israel for the longest time, and still very much high on the charts on the radio in Israel. When I played it, I had listeners that said, right on, I'm so glad you're expressing this. And I had other listeners that said, I don't like this. I don't feel comfortable with this. This is not who we are as Jewish people. Where we do what we need to do, we get the job done, but to come out with that, come out swinging and say, yeah, let's get them, let's they that didn't sit well with them.
I hear you. I get both of those. I'm more on that initial side personally, but I do get the second, the latter reaction. And I wonder, regarding your listeners, is there a way to tell, or do you know if the people was there a division between Israelis and Americans in terms of that, or are they all sort of American Jews that were responding to you? I say this because it seems to me that not embracing of, but that taking arms, action militarily is something that Israelis have not to embrace, but that's a reality they've had to embrace, to be part of. It's a reality that they've had to do to survive in the Middle East from the 40s and till today. And American Jews, that's not our way, because that's not our way. And we don't have, we're part of another system here. And so was there any sort of delineation in terms of those responses culturally?
Well, it's hard for me to say a little bit, because most of my listeners are English-speaking Jews from around the world, most of whom are, I guess, are not. We have a decent audience in Israel, but most of my listeners are outside of Israel, because if you're a native Hebrew speaker, you don't need me to give you more background on these songs, because it's everywhere. But I think you're right. I think that by and large, the average Israeli, I mean, the fact that this song was so high on the charts for so long shows the real sense of anger towards Hamas, towards this incident, towards over October 7th. They're hurting. And because of this pain, they want to go in with full force. Here in America, yeah, there are a lot of people who feel exactly the same way. But you know, I'm sure by the fierce debate that goes on in this country over this war and Israel's response, we read about it every single day, right, that not all American Jews are on board. Most of my listeners did like the song a lot, but I did hear a few comments saying, please, you know, this isn't for me.
I get that, and I love the song, and I'm curious to see what our listeners think.
הבאנו את כל הצבא עליכם ונשבע לא תהיה מחילה תפי, יא בני עמלק כל היחידות מוכנות גולני, נחלאוי שריון, איפה גבעתי חיל הים, חיל האוויר תותחנים, צנחנים כל היחידות בצה"ל במוד לחרבות דרבו על הראשך גולני, נחלאוי שריון, איפה גבעתי לכל הלוחמות באוויר על הזייסור ופיר כל היחידות בצה"ל באים לחרבות דרבו על הראש להם.
You spoke about how your audience is primarily Anglophones, and many, of course, must be American Jews. And you are currently on a tour in the States. And we're talking about Israeli music today. And I'm curious to know, you know, the music, the theme that we're talking about today is Israel's musical response to October 7th. What have you seen in terms of the American Jewish public? Are they in touch with these Israeli songs, or is it all completely foreign to them when you talk to them? What's that connection like?
In general, American Jews, I find, are not so connected to Israeli music. And I think that's a shame. I get it because, unfortunately, Hebrew is a barrier to entry for many. And look, I don't understand every song of every song that I play, but I got really connected to Israel by listening to music a long time ago. I didn't grow up with this stuff. My father was and still is a cantor as well. And so we had a lot of Jewish music playing in the house. But aside from the classics like Hallelujah and Chai and Bashana B'ah, things like that, I was really ignorant. Once I started listening, whether or not I understood the lyrics totally, my Hebrew is decent, but once I started listening, I just felt so much more connected because I would go to Israel. The next time I went to Israel after I got into Israeli music, and I'd be walking around the boardwalk or a mall or sitting in a cafe, and I'd hear these songs and I say, oh, I know that song, and I love that song, and I love that artist, and it just made me feel so much more connected. So I say, whether or not you understand the language, just dive in and immerse yourself in this music. You don't understand it, fine. At least it kind of washes over you, and you just feel like you're part of the culture. You get a few words, even better. And if you want, there are lots of sites online. Lyricstranslate.com is a great one, where you can find translations to a lot of these songs and get a sense of what they're really all about. And once you can pick apart a song and truly understand it in Hebrew, you just have a whole new appreciation for it. So I say, you don't understand Hebrew, listen anyway, and the rest will follow.
Thank you. Do you have, I think this is my last question for you for this interview, and do you have a favorite in terms of a musical Israeli songs that have come out post October 7th? Do you have a favorite? If so, why? What gets to you?
That's a very difficult question. I will tell you, it's kind of an unusual choice, but in terms of a music video, there is a klezmer group of all things out of Australia.
Okay.
And one of my listeners sent this to me. She's from Australia, and she likes to clue me in on what's going on in the Jewish community in Australia. And it's an Australian klezmer group called Chutney, and they covered a famous, not even that famous, but an older Israeli song by Shiry Maimon. Shiry has always been one of my absolute favorites, and they decided to use this song Kama At Yafa, How Beautiful You Are, to express their understanding of all that's gone on ever since October 7th. The music video, I think, is more significant than the actual lyrics. And in this music video, they are showing, yes, at first, the scenes of despair and tragedy that came out around the time of October 7th. But quickly, they switch gears into these images of unity and love and helping each other. And they show a video from the rally in Washington, D.C. with 300,000 people and all these wonderful expressions of love for Israel from around the world. And to me, it is extremely inspiring. And I tear up every time I watch it, and highly recommend.
What a way to end our conversation by choosing a song that isn't the performers are not Israeli, and yet we're bridging this Jewish world, and we are tied to our ancestral homeland. And I've heard many people in my community and beyond who may not have felt that way pre-October 7th, and then the relevance of this homeland, regardless of politics, has struck them, how important it is. And to have this song that you mentioned, the idea of unity, of love, and that it comes, and you mentioned the Washington rally, this idea that we are one people, we are Am Echad. And there's something regarding music that gets us where words fail us. And you mentioned that at the beginning. These artists have found the words and also the melodies that can capture ideas and sentiments, emotions that we can't capture with words. And thank you very, very much, Josh, for sharing these gems with us, for sharing your insights and your passion for this music. If everyone, I encourage you to listen to Israel Hour Radio. Where can we watch this? Where can we watch your show?
Well, for watching our show, it's available on Facebook Live every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And also as a podcast, we're available wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just search for Israel Hour Radio, or you can go to our website, myisraelimusic.com.
Josh Shron, thank you for joining me on Proudly Jewish.
Thank you.